Hi there, YouTubers. Just for fun, I'm going to be doing a presentation that I gave a few weeks back. It's the third presentation of Christianity versus humanism, and it really gets at the heart of some of the things that I think are important. And again, my background is I got saved 4 years ago. I was at Virginia Tech when the tragedy occurred. Heard the bullets, all that good stuff, and so when the tragedy occurred, really started asking some questions. Ended up giving my life to Christ, which is just a phenomenal thing. But before that, I was taught leadership development, did a lot of training and stuff, and was a humanist. And so I put these thoughts together to help people, particularly Christians, who don't seem to really understand a lot about what's going on outside of the church. I'm not convinced that they know a lot about what's going on inside of the church either, because humanism has crept into the church. And I would cite prosperity gospel. I would cite purpose-driven church, and just a number of things going on, particularly in American Christianity, that really not only dangerous but heretical. And so I'd like to start. The Federal Reserve, when they train inspectors, they train their inspectors on how to identify real bills, and so they give them all the particulars and have them really study real bills. And when you study real bills, it becomes easy to identify counterfeits of any sort, because you know the real bill so well that a counterfeit will stick out. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have to read the Bible and study and things like that, so that we can recognize any false doctrines as they appear in front of us. And in 2 Timothy 2:15 and 16, Paul says, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. And so there you have it. Let's get into the Bible. Let's share some ideas and really get into what it is we're dealing with today. In the presentation prior to this, Satan, in really the first lie he told, which was when he really fooled Eve, he said, "Ye will be like gods." That's when the kernel of humanism began. And humanism really is about us as individuals taking control of our own lives, our own world, and shaping that world to serve us. In other words, we would be like gods. And so the very first kernel of humanism was planted right there in the Garden of Eden. I went into a discussion of absolute versus relative truth, and I'll do a quick comparison of those two things, because it really becomes important as we look to distinguish Christianity from humanism. When you talk about absolute truth, and folks, any Christian that's out there, you believe in an absolute truth. You have to, otherwise you're not a Christian. You believe that God is absolute, that God is outside of us. Humanism can believe in absolute truth, but actually is a form of relativism, because of just how it unfolds, and philosophically how it unfolds. But if you believe in absolute truth, you believe that there's something that exists beyond you, beyond your perceptions and things like that, and that even though you may not know it, really affects your life. Relative truth, we create truth, so truth exists within us. Absolute truth, truth serves itself. It exists outside of us. It serves itself. It is, really. With relative truth, truth serves us, again, because we create it. With absolute truth, I can know some of it, but the vast majority of it I cannot know. And this becomes important. That's where faith is so important to the Christian, because we cannot know all, but we can know Jesus Christ, which is vitally important. With relative truth, because I create it, I can know all. This is, again, leads to one of the fallacies of relative truth, is that if I'm the one creating it, I can know all truth. And so just something to think about. With absolute truth, I can agree with some, but again, because it's outside of me, because I'm learning about it continuously, boy, some of it's really going to hurt. And when I look at sermons and listen to ideas and things like that about Christianity, usually I'm looking for doctrine that really has a cutting edge to it that convicts me somehow. And so I can agree with some of absolute truth, but some of it also is very difficult to agree with. With relative truth, it's easy. I created it, so I agree with all of it. And again, you begin to see how relativism can be really delusional, and is delusional. It doesn't make any sense. Again, absolute truth is outside of me. Relative truth is inside of me. Absolute truth, I can't change, but relative truth, I can change. And so there are some reflections on absolute versus relative truth. And so if I were to tie it back into humanism, if I make the rules, life really is pretty easy. But folks, if I'm wrong about there existing an absolute truth, if I don't think there exists an absolute truth and I'm wrong, boy, do I have a problem. And I think I can make a pretty good case that absolute truth does exist. I'm going to go on to the next couple slides that I have, and shift really from a big picture to a personal view. And really, when we look at our situation, we have our perspective. And folks, I do believe, though I don't want to get Pelagian on you, I do believe that the final battle is occurring here in the mind, because the mind is where everything intersects for us. And we are constantly being pulled between two things. This absolute truth that those of us as Christians know as God or Jesus Christ. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So we always strive as Christians to discover that absolute truth that is outside of us, that keeps us safe, that protects us, that corrects us, etc., etc. But we have something else always pulling on us, and that's the world. And the world is represented by flesh. The world is temporary, and it's humanistic, as opposed to absolute truth, which is spiritual. We are to live in the Spirit. It's permanent. Again, Christ said, "Don't worry about things of the world, because they're temporary. Think on things that are eternal, because those things are permanent." And I, Jesus Christ, am permanent. I was, I am, and I will always be. And so something to think about. The thing that really draws us to keeping our focus on the world is called sin. And the things that keep us in this world, pride is a big one. I struggle with pride even today. Lust is another big one that keep us focused on the world, and idolatry. And folks, you may not think, well, I don't worship idols. Folks, if you have a bank account and you're looking to really, one of your goals is money, that could be an idol for you. If you wear really nice clothes and you're really into your good looks, that can be an idol for you. So virtually anything can be an idol. But what about, how do we stand the truth? How do we keep our focus on Christ? I think there's a number of things that we can do to keep our focus on Christ. And number one is really to focus on our relationship with Christ, to pay attention to that, to keep that always in our minds. Prayer. I heard a study on Christian radio a month or two ago that said the average Christian prays less than 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And folks, they said that 80% of Christians, 80% pray less than 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. If you are one of those 80% of Christians, you may want to do what the Bible said and test yourself, because I have problems thinking that you are really a Christian if that's the case. Folks, another way we stay into truth is by staying in the Word, by reading the Bible, by studying the Bible. Also, we witness to other people. Our witness, and this is part of my witness, is talking about these two things and how I went from one to the other. We congregate. We get together with other Christians. We do all things with love and with gratitude. And we are try to be fearless. Christ said we're not given to a spirit of fear, and so something to think about. I'm going to end this part of the video and go on and make a part 2, so give me just a second. Thanks.